The greatest threat to businesses today isn't the outsider trying to get in. It's the people you trust, the ones who already have the keys, your employees, your contractors, and privileged users. 60% of online attacks are carried out by insiders. To stop these insider threats, you need to see what users are doing before an incident occurs. Observit combats insider threats by detecting risk activity, investigating in minutes, effectively responding, and stopping data lost. Give it a test drive at observit.com/Security Weekly. Networks are becoming increasingly complex and fragmented, and digital transformation and DevOps are driving an explosion in network connectivity changes. With each new network connection, cyber attackers may gain another opening to breach or traverse the network. At 2FIN, they've pioneered a policy-based approach to network security management using automation and analytics. As a result, you can make network changes in minutes instead of days, reliably and securely. To learn more about 2FIN, the security policy company, go to securityweekly.com/2FIN and sign up for a free evaluation. The modern attack surface is vast and permeable, extending from the data center to the cloud and device edge. Security teams are stretched thinner and thinner as they try to cover this ground. The result? More high-profile breaches hit the news every day. Don't let your organization be next. ExtraHop delivers security from the inside out, helping enterprise security teams detect threats up to 95% faster and cut staff time to resolve by 2/3 or more. Act with confidence. Learn more at extrahop.com/Security Weekly. Let the team at Black Hills Information Security test your defenses. With over 10 years of experience in penetration testing, red teaming, and threat hunting, the testers at Black Hills will help you find the holes in your security before the bad guys do. The team at Black Hills cares about educating and sharing their knowledge by creating countless blogs, open source tools, and webcasts for you to learn more about the tradecraft of pen testing and red teaming. Visit securityweekly.com/BHIS to join their mailing list and view the latest blogs and webcasts from Black Hills Information Security. Hey everyone, we're here at RSA Conference 2019. I am sitting with Wade Lance. He's the Principal Solutions Architect at Illusive Networks. Wade, welcome.
Hey Paul, thanks. Great
it's nice to have you here. About Illusive Networks, many have heard the name, but I think some of what you're doing recently may be elusive to some, and hopefully we can clear that up. Now, I think most people think of Illusive as a deception company.
That's where we started. Yep.
But now, recently, you're kind of reintroducing yourselves as a cyber hygiene product. What does that mean?
You know, we're adding to the capability.
Sure.
Right. And our particular niche, as you know, focuses in on this issue of hidden malicious lateral movement. Mm-hmm. And it's a difficult space, right? I mean, fundamentally, there's 3 ways to get access to a host, right? Some kind of a direct attack method, or perhaps exploiting a vulnerability. But you know, the easiest way, the most efficient way, once I've got access to one host, if I leverage the credential and connection data that's on that host, I'm in a great position to move to neighbors. And it's extremely difficult to differentiate that behavior from normal. So that's really the space that we're in.
It's funny, it sounds like that's almost like a newer technique, but like I remember doing those kinds of attacks on pen tests years ago on old Unix systems, right, that had in a authorized keys file or something like that, and you would just start jumping and pivoting. So it's a tried and true method that's been around.
Absolutely. It requires no software, right? No binaries to be detected based on their hash. Kind of a living off the land technique. And Illusive really is focused on solving that problem. And it's a huge problem for organizations, right? So that's our space really, traditionally.
So how does that work? How does the deception kind of dovetail into cyber hygiene to help detect that lateral movement?
So what happened was we have an automated platform to develop our deception work. And the long and short of it is we place highly targeted deceptive information, credential and connection data throughout the environment. And what it does is it destroys an attacker's ability to make decisions. I land someplace and I begin to look and attempt to move, and the tools that I would use, there's so much information there, it's hard to tell. And when I use it, Illusive detects that I'm there. So
you would put something in my authorized key file that would point to a deceptive system.
Credentials.
Right. Just as a basic example.
Connection data, all kinds of techniques, dozens and dozens of techniques. And And to do that, though, to be effective, it has to be highly targeted, not just to the organization, but to the individual host. So the first step in the process is we go through and scan the environment, host by host, from the host itself, and gather this exact data. The cached credential and connection information that is available. Fundamentally, if an attacker gets access to this host, what are they going to be able to see?
What's their view of the world?
What's their view of the world, right? Because they land, they got to start looking around. We take that information from the systems that we're on, put it on a management server, and then visualize those interactions. And it's an eye-opening experience, right? And what we found is that our customers looking at that data, we come back around and talk to them, and they'd have people assigned whose job it was to go out and clean that information. Hey, somebody left a domain admin cred out on that host.
Right.
You need to get out there and clean that off.
Right. So it was a manual response process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a huge process, a lot of work, not very scalable.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how have you helped automate that process? Like, do you view that map and I tell it these credentials shouldn't be there and go remove them from those systems?
So yeah, kind of right? It's pretty straightforward. One of the things we found is that we're able, right out of the box, we've got a set of rules that apply to most organizations. Certain kinds of behaviors we know, certain kinds of information you just don't want out there.
No one should be reusing a cached domain admin credential on a system that's in memory and accessing. Like, this should never happen in production, right?
Right. We shouldn't be seeing things like RDP sessions using privileged credentials that are 5 days old with no activity or 2 weeks old with no activity, right? We see local admin accounts that are active and broad numbers of systems where the local admin's accounts are not only active, but they're all using the same password. We see shadow admin accounts, right? Particular domain users that, although they're not a member of a privileged group, they have the privileges to act like those users, and they're in operation throughout the environment. So what we've done is built a real simple process to go out and do a single pass through an organization's host and gather this information and produce a report to show folks, hey, here's what we're finding in your environment as far as privileged information that you should be aware of. And it's usually pretty eye-opening.
So you've kind of tied together, because of the deceptive background, what's good, what's bad, what's part of your deception, and you're giving users visibility in the way to automate response to that, essentially.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things that we find is if we're gonna deal with the issue of hidden malicious lateral movement, where attackers are, and again, attackers, I mean, it could be insiders. We see a lot of that. We have to deal with this principle of first removing the goodies that are out there and available to the attacker, right?
Yeah.
Then our deceptive planting is that much more effective.
That makes it's like, why didn't I think of that moment again, right?
Right.
Like,
as an attacker, once I land there, if the real goodies are there,
they're going to use, and especially the more advanced an attacker, they're going to go after those real goodies, right? But now, if all that's left,
certainly easier to identify. And we've been at this for a while. We're pretty good at it, and even with that information in place, we have pretty exciting detection rates. But just removing that information, I think, gives security operators a good sense of peace. I think they sleep better at night, knowing that there's a system out there, Illusive, that is constantly monitoring your environment, looking for the kind of information that could be leveraged against you and cleaning it out. So
it does it an automated. It'll go remove that credential from memory, for example.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what we thought that would be the most exciting part of the solution. Hey, we're cleaning this. And what we found, though, is that what the system really does is it identifies the people and the processes that are orphaning this sensitive information throughout the environment. So you can go, find the desktop support person that doesn't understand how to close an RDP session and say, hey, this is better. You need to actually disconnect or log off. You don't just hammer the RDP client, right?
So rather than playing whack-a-mole all the time, it gives you the facility to say this user is always creating this condition, go change their process.
Right, or this application, you bought an application, it's supposed to be doing particular work, but it's leaving credentials behind.
Right.
And so, and we see this kind of information all the time.
Well, that's interesting. And I love how it ties to deception, too, to make your deception even that more accessible and real to attackers, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the real trick of it is to really understand how an organization operates. People invest heavily in, and they should, right, in pen test and vulnerability testing and these kinds of reporting, red team exercises, and they should do that. But what comes out of that is kind of the library of the possible, right? These things could all theoretically be used. The data that we're examining is the historical. These things happen.
Right.
And it is a very low threshold for an attacker to identify this information on these systems and then go leverage it. And so we're excited about the new capability. Our customers certainly are, especially those guys that were running around in the trenches manually doing the cleaning.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it helps them tremendously. So in terms of deception, do you find that attackers are now more aware that there could be deception in the network, or are they still kind of oblivious and they're like, whatever, no one's going to catch me? Like, do you have a sense as to like the level of attacker awareness on deception?
Yeah, so it's certainly improving over the years. Illusive is the third deception company that I've been with. So, having been a practitioner in this particular space for a while, I've really seen it evolve, and I think that there's a lot more awareness than there used to be, but it continues to be a case where the level of sophistication of the attacker really works against them. In a lot of cases, when you identify deception in the environment, an attacker, their pace slows down dramatically.
Yeah. Yep.
They become much more cautious about their movement, and our customers are excited about that, right? It's just the idea that the attacker
that you're slowing them down, even if they're trying to persist for a year-long kind of thing, there's more likelihood they're going to make a mistake in that year,
well,
right?
Absolutely. And our system, for deception to be effective, it has to be relevant to the organization that it's in, constantly being modified and updated.
Yeah.
And so that's where the persistent behavior that we have, both on scanning the systems and adapting our deceptive plants onto production systems, and then also cleaning them, right? It doesn't help when people are orphaning this privileged information behind. It's a daily, weekly process to keep that cleaned. And so some of our work, actually, we don't mind at all for an attacker to identify that we have planted deceptive information in the environment. That's actually an advantage for us. It makes some of our deception appear even more realistic.
Sure.
And it makes some production behaviors actually appear to be somewhat deceptive. We assume, for instance, that the attacker has multiple points of presence in the environment, and they're comparing.
I was going to say that too. If I put myself in the attacker's shoes, I would have more than one way in, and so if I did trip some kind of deception and they found me, I'm like, oh, that's okay, I've got a couple more, right? But your hope is that you're going to start shutting them down through your cyber hygiene, removing credentials, maybe making it harder to have more than one inroad, but also allowing them to trip over other things in the environment.
Yeah, and I think the pain point for attackers fundamentally is that our environment is our deceptive planting in the environment is so targeted and calibrated right down to the individual endpoint.
Yep.
That it's logical on that system the way that our information is creating a story.
Sure,
right? It's storytelling.
That's a great way of putting it for deception. It has to be part of a narrative or a story to be real enough to foil attackers.
Absolutely. The system looks at my laptop and it goes, oh, Notepad++, PuTTY, WinSCP. Wade's a nerd. He's a geek, and so when it creates behavior on my system, it creates behavior relevant to my
your profile,
relevant to my organization. And so we do lots of red team exercises with tier 1 red teams.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. They pull their hair out and scream and curse, and it's a
great learning experience for both sides.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. Absolutely. Wade, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you.
Welcome to RSA 2019. I'm Matt Alderman, And joining me today is Nir Greenberg, Director of Customer Success at Illusive Networks. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure being here.
So, Director of Customer Success, I think that's a sales position, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So what is that role within Illusive Networks?
Good question. So part of the role, I was there since the beginning. And as a startup in the early days, basically do a lot of things all together. So one of the items that made the most sense that I will take care of, because I'm seeing the field all the time, is really taking also the implementation, but then also the forensics piece. So I build a team of incident responders and DFIR people that are super technical, that have background in performing incident response in very large organizations, and then it came in the same under the same umbrella, I would say.
Oh, okay. So as a deception company, you think about detection.
Yes.
Now what you're saying is, well, now that I've seen an incident, now it's on the incident response side. So now it's on the responsive side. But it's just interesting that you just kind of rolled it up under customer success, because if you think about it, detecting something bad going on in your network is one step in the process, which is where you kind of focus initially in the deception technology. Now you've taken that a little further, but you rolled it up under a program of success across those two pillars for your customers, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, the concept behind it is really become familiar with the implementation portion to the optimization of the platform, and then whenever they need you, you're there for them, and they have those focal points inside the organization. They're their trusted advisors, and that's why it makes sense.
Got it. Do you treat that more as a managed service, or is it just part of the offering from Illusive Networks and when they buy the product?
Some and some. So we do have a service that we can offer our clients. Normally we outsource that to our partners,
okay,
so they can do the incident response.
Got it. So tell me about the challenges with incidents and incident response when it comes to how you're detecting deceptions. Where are some of those challenges for folks?
Yeah, so the number one challenge is the skills, the people's skills. So let's say you got an incident. It doesn't matter if it will be elusive or something else. You really need to have people with the right skill set, right? So in a lot of cases, even with the large organizations, what we see is very young people that don't have a lot of experience, so they throw them into the SOC and they need to analyze the incident, and they have one or two gurus inside that they can support them. But in the end of the day, once you get an incident, they are not always there, those people, so they cannot support them throughout the entire process. So sometimes the organization can find itself in a situation that you don't have the right talent to deal with those complex incidents. So this is the number one challenge that we see. The second challenge is, let's say that you have an organization that is really good, but you don't have enough people to analyze all the incidents that you have. So for example, if you get 1,000 incidents a day from all of the security solutions you have out there, it's really difficult because you don't have enough people to deal with the amount of false positives,
right,
or the real incidents as well. And the third problem is really get the right data to those people who are investigating the incident, whether it will be the incident responder or the SOC. So basically trying to give the organization the needle in the haystack, because when you have an incident, you really try to find the context of the incident. You try to find the data. And you have so much data that you need to collect and correlate and do the triage process and all of that. So you basically need this single thing that will tell you that's what happened. I can share with you a quick example, which is there was an incident that we were able to detect. Some of the internal employees was reaching out to one of our deceptions. We were able to trigger and get forensics from the source. We'll talk about that probably in a second. And what we saw is basically a malicious insider, a person that was leaking out data. And when they did the correlation with the other security solutions that they had there, they managed to find that this guy is doing that for 5 months. And they didn't realize that they were doing that because they were overcoming their DLP solution, for example. So they were sending it over PowerPoint.
Oh.
So they were doing it for 5 months. They didn't even know about it. And when they got the incident, the needle in the haystack, that someone was leaking data from our trap server.
Right.
Then they were able to connect the dot and manage to solve it.
Yeah, so I think the forensics collection part of this is a challenge, because you usually have to pivot to another set of tools typically to really understand kind of the root cause of what's going on, right? So if you're a SOC analyst, you get a trigger and alert, then you have to figure out, okay, well, I need more data about that, so I got to pivot and I do some other things. But I think you guys have introduced some capabilities that allow you to get it directly from your solution, so that it's a little easier to go get that forensics data and not have to pivot to another set of tools.
That is correct. So the way it works is we plan deception everywhere. So deceptions on endpoint, servers, Linux, Mac, whatever it would be. And we do it in different layers. So it can be application layer, data, network, and memory.
Okay.
Right? So wherever the attacker would try to harvest information from, we will wait for them there. Once he would try to touch one of our deceptions, then we'll interact with that adversary. We can also put him inside our honeypot or a decoy, depends on what they were looking for. And also at the same time, we bring forensics from the source machine, from the machine that the adversary was working from. And by that, you bring forensics from the source. Everything comes up to our management server, and we present everything in one timeline. So you can basically go over all the incident or the forensics evidence that you had during the incident from the source and from the destination. So then you can get a full picture, 360 degrees, of what happened during this lateral movement attempt.
So what can you get from the source? You don't necessarily have access to that device per se. So what kind of forensics data can you pull from the source of the attack?
Yeah, the source is an interesting item, because when I'm saying source, I'm talking about the machine inside the organization.
Oh, okay.
We can give you the command and control indicators, because we do collect network information from the source machine. So we can direct you to where is this machine that was communicating with a machine inside the organization. That's number one. So in terms of the information we collect from the machine inside the organization, so we are basically talking about MFT data, network information, shim, prefetch, a lot of information in terms of the incident. But I think that's more important is that we can also tell you what is coming. So think about it like this. Let's say that the adversary was using Mimikatz in order to harvest credentials from memory, and then was trying to execute something using PSExec, for example. But on the same breath, he also had an arsenal of tools that he's going to use in the future, or he was going to use that, right?
Right.
So we bring that this information from the source during the attack, so we can actually see what the attacker is about to do. And then the organization can protect himself by creating their own IOCs and protect themselves from what supposedly could happen. And we see it quite a lot in red teams, where we bring forensic screenshot from the desktop of the adversary, and you can actually see a folder full of their tools, so you can actually know what they're going to do soon.
Oh, so not only are you detecting the base attack, but you're also predicting what is the next step in the attack sequence, and pulling the forensics in order to really try to figure out how to mitigate the next steps in the potential attack sequence.
Yeah, you can basically prepare yourself in a better way, because then, I mean, organizations, they have so many security solutions. So when they see this type of information, they can use the other forensics tools that they have there, or even other security tools, in order to mitigate this incident, or follow the attackers. Some organizations are actually obligated to follow the steps of the adversary. So once they know what those tools are, they know how to track them down inside the organization.
Got it. Now, I'm helping with incident response, right? Predicting those next set of steps. How does the actual mitigation or remediation activities happen then? Is that an interface into something else, or is Illusive providing some of those capabilities natively just to make it a little easier to automate aspects of some of those remediation steps?
So twofold. One, yes, we can have our own capabilities using the decoy, so we can let the attacker play around and then he's not harming regular systems in the organization. And other organizations do prefer integrations. So we have integrations with other forensics tools and mitigation tools. One of them is the most common one is the PX Grid of Cisco, Cisco ICE. But in general, if you think about it, all of our incidents go to the SIM. over syslog. So what the organization do oftentimes is that they create a call from the SIM server to mitigate that computer, or to quarantine that specific computer using just the syslog that we send to the SIM server.
Got it. Plus, you can also isolate the device and kind of protect it from compromising or doing any lateral movement elsewhere while the attacker's playing around. That's great. Any other updates on Illusive that you wanted to share today?
No, I think it's a product that we see very happy customers with that. They get things that they didn't get before from their existing security solutions, and definitely worth a shot. So
so if anybody wants to learn more, where should they go?
So we have our website. It's illusivenetworks.com. And by the way, we have all kinds of assessment that we do for RSA, so you can reach out to us and talk with us about it.
Perfect. Nir, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.